Welcome to The Project. Tonight, the triple murder mushroom trial nears its end. And as the jury prepares to deliberate, Erin Patterson is one step closer to finding out her fate.
All eyes on Donald Trump as he weighs up getting America directly involved in the Iran-Israel conflict, and we take a look at the ripple effect.
And a deep dive into the life and legacy of Jaws. 50 years on, how it changed cinema and the world. Oh my God.
It's okay, Waleed, I'll hold your hand. Plus, Prince of Comedy and Project favourite Joel Creasey is back at the desk for one last laugh. Oh, I can't wait to see him.
We are live from Lands of the Cooler Nation with Nick Cody and Susie Yusuf.
Hey,
also a bit of a Uma Thurman Poison Ivy thing going on here, I reckon.
With my hair?
Yeah.
Oh. Yes, thank you so much. I'll take that.
Yeah, go for it.
Here
If you don't know what I'm
lies
talking
Uma
about,
Thurman.
yeah, you can just go look at an old movie.
All right, let's get into today's top stories. And as the world waits for Donald Trump to decide whether to attack Iran, Aussies in the region are desperately trying to get home. At this stage, 1,500 have registered to be evacuated from Iran. Another 1,200 are waiting to leave Israel. A small group of Australians have left Israel by land already, but Foreign Minister Penny Wong says it's challenging for the government to help.
This is a very stressful and risky situation. Obviously, there are real limits, hard limits on what the government can do. The airspace remains closed.
Former political staffer Bruce Lehrmann has dialed in via a phone link to a Hobart court today where he pleaded not guilty to a charge of stealing a car from the Huon Valley last year. His lawyer tried to halt proceedings. He also accused the alleged victim of contempt of court. Lehrmann's bail was extended and the matter was adjourned until September. Now, it's one of the most high-profile murder trials in recent memory, and today both sides wrapping up their closing arguments. It's one step closer to finishing. The fate of accused mushroom murderer Erin Patterson now in the hands of a dozen jurors.
35 days, 50-plus witnesses, one accused murderer on trial. Erin Patterson charged with murdering her estranged husband's parents, Don and Gail Patterson, and his auntie, Heather Wilkinson, as well as the attempted murder of Heather's husband, Ian. The prosecution's key argument that Erin Patterson faked a cancer diagnosis to lure her guests to lunch, deliberately poisoning them with the death cap mushrooms she had foraged and hidden in individual beef Wellingtons. Erin eating her meal off a different coloured plate from the others. While the defence admits Erin Patterson had foraged mushrooms and that there were death cap mushrooms in the lunch, it says Patterson
did not deliberately serve poisoned food to her guests. What happened was a tragedy and a terrible accident. She's innocent.
Today, her defence wrapped up its closing arguments, outlining holes in the prosecution's, quote, dangerous and seductive case, arguing Patterson's lies and actions after the guests became sick were purely due to panic.
People were blaming her, understandably, because whichever way you look at it, it was her fault. She starts panicking and she starts lying at that point.
Earlier, accusing the prosecution of being selective with its evidence.
The prosecution's just made an argument to you. That's not evidence. The prosecution has referred selectively to the evidence, choosing the bits they like to suit their theory in a very deliberate way.
Erin Patterson has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
For the latest on the case, crime and justice reporter for The Age, Erin Pearson, was in court today. Erin, the defence today was accusing the prosecution of being selective with its evidence. What were they referring to?
Colin Mandy SC was essentially telling the jury that the prosecution have cherry-picked the evidence that they have collected as part of the police investigation and only told them parts of it and really not relied on other parts of it. Now, this includes text messages between Erin Patterson and her family, also Facebook messages between Erin Patterson and her online friends, and some of the evidence that Erin Patterson's two children gave, recorded evidence they gave that was played during the trial. He said essentially that the prosecution were picking the pieces that suited their case and potentially leaving out others, and he was quite critical of the way that they were doing that.
The defence also refuted 4 key propositions that the prosecution had presented. Can you take us through those?
Yeah, they refuted that Aaron Patterson would kill anybody without a motive. He said this was quite absurd to think that anybody would do that. And without a motive, his argument was to the jury, there really is no intent, no reason for her to have killed her lunch guests. He also refuted the fact that the cancer claim that she made allegedly on the prosecution case was used as a ruse or a bit of a lure to get her lunch guests to attend the lunch. The defence maintained Erin Patterson, as she said in her evidence, wanted to grow closer to the 4 lunch guests that were invited, and that was the reason for the lunch. They also refuted and said that it was a really absurd suggestion by the prosecution that Erin Patterson would ever believe that her lunch guests would take this health lie, this illness lie that the jury have been told by the prosecution she was telling the lunch guests at the lunch to their graves. He said that it was just the most absurd thing that the prosecution could ever allege, and it wasn't something that Erin Patterson ever thought of. And the fourth and final proposition that they refuted today was what Mandy said was this illogical proposition that Erin Patterson would ever try and pass off 3 of the lunch guests dying as some sort of strange case of gastro. We know that the prosecution say it was Erin Patterson's intent to kill it and all make the lunch guests very seriously unwell. And that was something else that the prosecution, the defence, strongly said to the jury, that is definitely not the case. Our client is innocent and you should find her innocent.
Erin, what's still to happen before the jury comes back with a verdict?
So we are at 35 days, 35 sitting days of this trial now. And when Colin Mandy sat down after giving his closing address, that's the last that we will hear from the barristers that are sitting at the bar table, the prosecution and defence. Now, the judge, Christopher Beale, turned to the jury at the end of this today and thanked them for their patience and their attendance and said for the next 4 days, they will have a long weekend. What he said they should think of as an extra Easter weekend. And at this time, he said that there were some legal things that needed to take place and they didn't need to be here for that. And he told them that they should return at 10:30 next Tuesday, where his charge will begin. And guys, this is where he takes the jury through some different legal propositions and explains to them some instructions on what they should do when they finally go out to deliberate on a verdict.
All right, we'll see what happens from there. Erin, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
To more news now, and Australia's unemployment rate has held steady at 4.1% in May, but 2,500 workers lost their jobs.
Too soon.
It is a bit, and the participation rate dipped. But while most analysts are still forecasting, Cody's gone, are still forecasting another interest rate cut next month, others say the RBA won't rush into anything. They're tipping the RBA board will wait to see inflation data for the June quarter before they make any decisions.
We are not included in those figures, so interest rates are about to plummet. How often do you give or receive compliments? Well, a new survey has found 54% of men don't hear anything nice about their appearance, even on a monthly basis.
Wow.
The stats also show most blokes don't offer that many compliments either. 31% don't even do it once a month. Women give and receive compliments much more regularly.
Now, I know that this is in the show so that we compliment you, but actually I'll just forget that first part of the survey and say that you do give compliments. You did it tonight.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
What did I do? Also a bit of a Uma Thurman poison ivy thing going on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll take that.
Well, we see who take on the compliments. Clearly.
I accept them.
I think if one bloke says to another one, nice shirt, that's, do you want to fight? Like, what does that mean? You don't really mean that. If one of my good mates said, nice clothes, champ, you go, what's happened?
Yeah.
Did a boo poo
also,
on me.
when you do say something nice, you'd actually, it's often an insult.
Yeah.
Like, good on you, idiot. Oh,
yeah.
Good on you. He said good on you.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Hang on, if you had to give Nick a compliment right now, go.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Mate,
A sincere one.
A sincere, but he won't take it as sincere.
We don't know yet.
Okay.
Break the trend.
Mate, you are a delight to work with.
Oh, right back at you.
Yeah, see, I don't believe that at all.
Why did you both have to do that?
We're not stable, guys.
Now, recently, Gold Coast Mayor Tom Tate wrote a letter to his pen pal Donald Trump urging him to reconsider tariffs on the film industry. Let's check in to see if he's heard back.
You heard back on your letter to Trump for yourself, Smith?
No, look, I think Iran and Hamas and all these sort of issues is probably taking his focus.
Now, sure, Trump has Iran and Israel to worry about, but don't sell yourself short, Tom. Game 3, State of Origin. There's big battles. Come on, Tommy, believe in yourself.
That's another compliment.
Yeah, there you go. Believe in yourself, Tom Tate.
Raining compliments. All right, we'll go to a break. We'll see you soon. Back, watching the project.
Now, Qantas is investigating how an aero bridge at Brisbane's International Airport managed to shatter a plane's front windscreen last night. The flight from New Zealand was taxiing when it struck the bridge. No one was injured. Passengers were able to disembark without any hassles. It's the airport's second bridge strike in as many months.
And that Qantas damage is nothing compared to what SpaceX will have to clean up. Its Starship 36 blew up on the launch pad during a routine pre-flight static fire test at Starbase in Texas. The explosion was enormous. The launch site was still burning a couple of hours after the blast. No injuries have been reported. An investigation is underway to work out what went wrong.
That vision is incredible. And tonight, utter heartbreak for the lone Air India survivor as the investigation into the deadly crash continues. Consoled by family, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, the sole survivor of the Air India crash, has found the strength to be a pallbearer in his brother RJ's funeral procession. Still wearing bandages on his face and arms, he was only discharged from hospital on Tuesday. Ramesh was sitting on the opposite side of the plane to RJ, heading home to the UK when the plane crashed just after takeoff last week. Vladimir Putin has stunned the world by again claiming he wouldn't have attacked Ukraine in 2022 had Donald Trump been US president instead of Joe Biden. And the Russian president says he's ready to talk about ending the war, but only if what he calls legitimate authorities handle negotiations.
By all means, let it be Zelensky. The question isn't about that. The question is, who will sign the documents?
And a Texas mum has orchestrated a biblical Father's Day prank. Kristen Combo got all the mums at her church to gift their husbands identical shirts and then had them wear them to Sunday Mass. The plan worked perfectly. More than 200 dads showed up sporting the same polo.
That's awesome. I love it. I understand you have some responsibility. Dude, nice shirt. You're kidding me. That is brilliant. Oh my gosh.
It is worth watching the whole video of that just to see each individual father realise at the same time that it's not just one or two people that have it, but hundreds.
And the range of responses, some love it, some are like, what is this?
Yeah, and some are just completely perplexed. Not another one, you know?
Yeah.
I love it and I completely understand it. As a dad, if someone gave me a shirt as a gift, that's one less time I have to go to a shop.
Yes. That's what they're really giving you.
Yeah. Most of my closet is just, I'm at a pub and I'm like, you sell shirts? Awesome. This has saved a trip to a shop.
Yeah.
I'm flying.
Do you think the opposite would fly?
What? As in getting all the mums to
the same top.
I don't know. You tell me, Susan.
Good one, Waleed.
Yeah. Compliments.
Yeah. Smart, Waleed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not hard, man. It's not hard.
There's still a week to go, but the Daily Mail's still watching. Very smart. I like that. You didn't fall for it. You didn't fall for it. Don't fall for their traps. Now, you don't often get to say this, but let's stick with Texas and shirts because it turns out this judge is not a big fan of novelty tees.
Good morning, sir. What made you think that was a good shirt to wear to court this morning? That's all you could find? That's all, the only shirt you had in your closet? World's best farter. That's great. You're in felony court. You need to dress appropriately to felony court, and that's not appropriate.
Come on, sir, it's felony court, not smellany court. He's obviously going with the he who smelt a delta defence, and that's a very wise move.
Never fails.
I'd love that T-shirt, by the way. If someone could get me that T-shirt.
You are watching The Project. We'll see you soon. Welcome back to The Project.
Now, can you feel something beneath you, menacing you from the murky depths below? It can only be the movie Jaws, which 50 years ago changed cinema forever, but it also changed how the public viewed sharks. And it's a perception many shark experts say is completely correct.
50 years ago, the New England beach town of Amity Island was menaced by a 25-foot great white with an appetite for swimmers. In 1975, the movie Jaws smashed box office records, put a young director named Steven Spielberg on the map, and basically invented the modern movie blockbuster. It also made an entire generation terrified of sharks.
The music of Jaws rewrote the rule book on how we hear movie music. Immediately puts you in the ocean in peril. The second you hear those strings happening, you immediately think of a shark heading towards you.
While Jaws is widely considered one of the greatest films of all time, its reputation amongst shark experts isn't quite as positive.
When the movie Jaws first came out, it was revolutionary. The problem is it brought the attention to an animal in a more negative aspect. Mindless hunting machines just out there to kill people whenever they see them, and that's wrong.
While sharks have a reputation as one of our greatest predators, statistically you're more likely to be killed by a cow or even a lawnmower. But since the mid-20th century, the species has been depleted by between 80 and 90%, thanks to commercial fishing, climate change and ocean pollution. Now, they're classified as vulnerable.
Whilst the film is legendary, it really did do a lot of damage to the reputation of sharks, but we're slowly rebuilding that over time.
The shark, swallow you whole, shaking, and rising. Down you go.
It might be hard to look at sharks and their 50 billion razor-sharp teeth and think, okay, maybe they're cuddlier than I thought. But marine ecologists insist the creatures are gravely misunderstood.
In my experiences, they're not very aggressive. They utilise their mouths in order to feel their environment. But when they do that to a human, our skin is so flimsy and soft that we just rip instantly. In reality, they're actually just curious, going around feeling the world around them to see what they are.
So can we still enjoy one of the greatest cinematic scarefests of all time, while recognising that sharks are not actually the psychopathic killers they're made out to be?
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Oh, I've actually never seen Jaws.
Oh.
Really? Because that introduction was so compelling. I just thought I'd give you...
Thank you so much.
Jaws.
I starred in it. No, I didn't.
I feel like you're going to have some time coming up where you can...
But am I going to be terrified to go in the ocean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Really? You've got time to get over that too. There's a bit of time coming up. Jaws is incredible, but I don't care what the experts are saying, still be scared of sharks.
Yeah.
Those shark experts are sounding a lot like pit bull owners. No, it's friendly. Until your baby's going, and then it's...
I have to say that the words I don't care what the experts say often comes from that end of the desk.
Yeah. Also, you've got a big future in media with that approach. That burnt a lot of people. All right, we'll do a break. We'll see you soon. Back to the project.
Last-ditch diplomacy or a bunker-busting bomb? As the war in the Middle East intensifies, the world is holding its breath. Will Trump or won't Trump attack Iran?
I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Donald Trump keeping the world guessing.
The million-dollar question, will Washington enter this war?
Amid reports the US president has approved plans to strike Iran.
I have a plan for everything, but we'll see what happens. You know, it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House.
No Iranian official has ever asked to grovel at the gates of the White House.
Trump believed to be holding off for now in the hope Iran agrees to abandon its nuclear program.
I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction.
Iran's warning, get involved and risk all-out war.
We have no choice but to retaliate. That is clear and simple. We are acting in self-defense.
Iran has said if the U.S. strikes us in war, we're going to strike U.S. positions. We have 40,000 U.S. troops in the region and tens of thousands of civilians.
Iran is seeing this potential for the U.S. to enter the conflict and trying to deter it through the threat of a wider war.
The war of words comes as Israel and Iran exchange blows for a 7th consecutive day.
We control the skies over Tehran. We are striking with tremendous force. We are striking the nuclear weapons, the missiles, the headquarters, the symbols of the regime.
A heavy-water nuclear reactor has been bombed in Iran, while in southern Israel a hospital has been struck after Iran fired a wave of missiles.
Difficult for us. It's completely difficult. We are dealing with completely destroying house. It's our memories here.
I'm devastated inside. I've lost all that is dear to me.
If the US does attack, the most obvious target is Iran's Fordow nuclear site, heavily fortified, built deep inside a mountain.
The Americans are the only ones with the planes and the heavier bunker buster bombs that could meaningfully damage, if not destroy, this facility.
But if Trump does decide to strike, what comes next is harder to predict.
I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do.
Thomas Countryman was a former Assistant Secretary of State for International Security in the Obama administration. Thomas, this is meant to be the president who doesn't go to war. Do you think he will?
I think the chances are more likely than he will than that he won't. However, that decision has not yet been made. And in our constitutional system, it is a decision that ought to be made only in consultation and authorization by the Congress. And that step has not been taken yet. He does not have the authority under our Constitution to start a new war. It would be disastrous for us politically, for him politically, for the United States in terms of the risk to American lives. And it would not solve the problem that Israel and the United States say they wish to address.
If Trump does decide to strike, what could the fallout be?
Number one, even U.S. involvement, even the use of the U.S.'s most powerful bombs against the Fordow complex would not bring an end to Iran's nuclear ambitions. It would impel Iran to proceed with more secretive and more dangerous efforts to produce a nuclear weapon. But you cannot bomb away the knowledge that Iran has gained through its enrichment program. You cannot bomb your way to peace. The other fallout, as you call it, will be primarily in terms of the lives of civilians and servicemen from the U.S. and from other nations in the region as well. We do not need a wider war in the Middle East at this point.
The choice that Donald Trump seems to have given the Iranians now is to make a deal from a position of weakness. You have no cards to play. You have to come cap in hand, make a deal that way, or you go to war. You would know the Iranians pretty well from having dealt with them over this issue. How important is saving face to them? How important would it be for them to have a way out to strike a deal that isn't humiliation, as opposed to having to go to war as the only way to still retain some kind of esteem?
I don't claim to be an expert on Iranian politics, but it's important to note that even in a country that is not a democracy, there is domestic politics. I don't think that it can be expected that the leader of any nation, Iran or any other, would accept an ultimatum like that. Mr. Trump has shown that he doesn't always know who holds the cards and who doesn't. But I think if he put himself in that situation where the only choice was total surrender or going to war, he would not accept that those are the only two choices available.
Thomas Countryman, these are large days indeed. Thank you very much for guiding us through them.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
To more of today's top stories, and the defence has wrapped up its closing arguments in the trial of accused triple murderer Ariana Grande. Her barrister urged the jury to reject the prosecution's case, arguing there was no motive for Ms Patterson to do what she's accused of. The trial will resume on Tuesday, when the judge will instruct the jury before it retires to consider a verdict. Ms Patterson has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
A 27-year-old man has been charged, accused of driving a stolen Land Cruiser right through the middle of Melbourne's Northland shopping centre yesterday. Shocked customers and staff only narrowly avoided being hit as the vehicle sped past them. It's the second security breach at Northland in just 3 weeks, following last month's violent machete fight. And today, the centre was evacuated again, this time because of an electrical fire which shut some areas for 2 hours.
And this shopkeeper at Northland had a lot to say about that dangerous driver, but his opinion may surprise you.
As he was going by, he was obviously punching his horn
wanting people to get out of his way. He was really considerate and telling people to get out of his way. He's just trying to get away from the cops.
Looking forward to the movie about this whole thing, Too Fast, Too Friendly. I'm starting to think this guy might be a pretty big fan.
He was a very skilled driver, I have to say. I mean, I personally go karting quite a bit, but he had astounding skills to be driving a four-wheel drive through a shopping centre.
See what men have to do to get compliments? We've got to take a Land Cruiser through the shops. It's not as easy as getting a haircut or some new shoes.
Very good. We've got to take a break. We'll be back after this.
Now, earlier this year, we brought you the story of 3 South Korean Australians whose lives were rocked by one of the biggest adoption scandals in history. One of the project's own is very close to this story. Alex Lee is with us now. Alex, welcome back. What can you tell us about this?
So my big sister Kimberley is adopted from South Korea. So that's just something we've always known our whole lives, but it felt like now was a good time for her to go back and answer some really big questions. So we all went together as a family. Yeah. And this is what happened.
I do hold space for feeling very lucky to have this post-adoption experience, whilst acknowledging the first life experience was extremely tragic. To be abandoned and I guess just left to survive, which I did. Not all of us make it.
Growing up, I always knew my big sister was adopted. And to be honest, it wasn't a big deal. It was a fun fact to tell kids in the playground. My sister's from South Korea, I'm a test tube baby, and my brother was an accident. But we were happy kids with loving parents and great childhoods. It's only in recent years that we've started coming to terms with the issues around inter-country adoption.
Do you remember struggling with any of these issues as a kid?
As far as identity goes, there were times when I just didn't know what I saw in the mirror. I know that I'm Korean, but I had no sense of really what that meant or what it was supposed to look like or mean, because I didn't know any other Korean people except for perhaps seeing photos of other adoptees. And so I think there was always a sense of being quite disconnected from self in that respect, even though, I felt so safe.
In the decades after the Korean Civil War, at least 200,000 babies were sent abroad to Western countries. 3,600 were sent to Australia. My sister, Kimberley, was one of those babies.
We were approved fairly quickly, and we just got a phone call out of the blue to say that a child had been allocated to us and would we like to go to Parramatta to see the photograph and the history of the child. And of course we said, yeah. We did. Yeah.
What was it like when you saw that photo?
It was glorious, wasn't it? I mean, she just looking, I was going to get emotional, and just looked at us with these big eyes, saying, it was almost like, take me, wasn't it?
Once you see the photo, you sort of almost immediately identify with it.
Like, that's your daughter.
So, that's it.
This year, the South Korean Truth and Reconciliation Commission released a damning report, finding the South Korean government responsible for facilitating a foreign adoption scheme rife with fraud.
The injustices that have happened to these tiny babies with no agency, no voice, no chance.
My heart went out to the adoptive children who are now adults who suddenly found that maybe they weren't orphans.
The agency Kimberley was adopted through is under investigation for falsifying documentation, leading to a profit-driven mass exportation of children.
Knowing that child trafficking has occurred, the parents were told that their children had died so that they could give that baby to someone else. Knowing that feels harder than not knowing anything.
When we were growing up, you were always, told by mum and dad, if you ever want to go to South Korea or if you want to find your birth parents, that's always available to you. And that wasn't really ever something you wanted to do or said you wanted to do until quite recently.
I think turning 40 a couple of years ago was also a bit of a pivotal moment of, where am I at with myself, having done so much work, so much therapy. And I was like, you know what, I think I'm ready to feel into whatever this experience of going home is.
As a family, we travelled to South Korea. It was the first time Kimberley had been back since she was adopted.
Going through these doors today is a huge step in my life, in my history, in our family history. I want to ask if they've heard from any of my biological family. I'd like to know what else is in my records and if there's any more history about me and my biological parents. I'd like to know as much as possible.
So we just left our meeting with Eastern. How are you feeling?
I think I had very low expectations going in and wasn't really expecting anything super groundbreaking. They showed us what they have. I feel relieved. I feel relieved that there was nothing earth-shattering. I feel well supported and I feel calm.
There was a sense of like belonging when you got there, right? Like you were like, oh, these are sort of my people in a way. Like,
and I've never had that feeling. It was a new feeling, so quite shocking. I felt my whole body relax and I had a sense of, oh, you're home. This is where you're from. A huge piece of me felt like it had opened to a whole new experience of self and place.
Yeah. For me, one of the standout moments was the night we left Seoul and we were on a tour. We went to this tiny little Korean pub and there seemed to be only really old Korean people drinking there.
But how do you really know, right?
And then we ended up chatting to these people. This lady just started talking to us and buying us drinks.
They said, you're obviously tourists. Where are you from? And then why are you here? Yeah. And so the story opened up and the lady who was an actress actually said that she's also a Kim and completely embraced me and said that you're home, you know, you're welcome here, and just held my face.
So what do you feel like you got from this trip?
I'm really excited to explore my Korean identity. And I feel like there's been a part that's settled and softened that has allowed me to perhaps find more compassion, to be able to grieve more openly and to figure out what it means for me to be Korean and to be here.
What a story. Congratulations on it, and of course to Renee who helped produce that. You can see the effect it has on Kimberley, just this whole situation. How big's it been for the family?
It's been really big for the family. I'm so glad we could all go together, for her to know that that's not a journey she had to do alone, you know, that we're still her family, whatever she was going to find out on that trip. And, you know, it's just someone you've known your whole life. Like, my sister's been there before I was born in the family, and so finding out this part of her and finding out, oh my God, everyone in Korea walks really fast like you. This is the only city where you haven't gotten mad at people for not walking fast enough, and everyone wears black, and it's like, oh, it's like, you know, piecing together some parts and yeah, I guess getting to know her even better.
What was it like for you personally, being with her at that adoption agency when, you know, she's finding out that there actually isn't that much information about her biological family?
Yeah, in a way it was reassuring that the agency had everything that we had, that there wasn't huge missing pieces. You know, my mum had written letters and sent photos of my sister in case the mum wanted to find her. Oh, sorry, there we go. And they had all of that. But I also got, you know, I got quite frustrated because, you know, there were things that, there were questions that just weren't answered, and that was really frustrating. Yeah.
You want to like tear down doors and be like,
I know, I was meant to be quiet in the interview and I was like, sorry, I just have one question. What do you mean there's no documentation for when, you know, my sister's birth mum signed her over? Yeah.
And will your sister go back to South Korea and keep trying to find her biological parents?
She's going to go back and just sort of get to know it a bit more and see what she can find. She's sort of open to finding that. I think a lot of people assume that people want to immediately find their birth parents, but it's really complicated. I mean, the fact is that they might get in contact with the parents, and the parents might not want to meet them. And, you know, the idea of that rejection again is really hard. So.
Just very quickly, it must have been extraordinary to have that experience as a family, and even though there wasn't any more information gained, I mean, the information that you probably did gain is how incredible you are all as a unit to be sitting there advocating for her, that your parents were there as well. I just want to say I love your family.
Thanks so much. And thanks for letting us tell this story.
And don't worry, Susie outcried you when the story was wrong. So,
What an experience interviewing your sister as well, by the way.
It's so hard. You know, like anyone no one can see through your bullshit. Like,
right? Would you please thank Alex Lee? Absolutely gorgeous.
We better go to a break if that's it.
Well, Nicholas Bartholomew Cody, I'm in a reflective mood because this is the last on this day.
Why? What's happened?
Nick, the show's been cancelled.
And this is how I find out. Well, let's hope the 19th of June doesn't let us down. It's time for On This Day.
In 1963, famous cosmonaut, the first woman in space, and friend of the show, Valentina Tereshkova, returned safely to Earth. And 60 years later, her hair remains in zero gravity.
On this day, 1991, hippo farming cocaine enthusiast and friend of some on the show, Pablo Escobar, surrendered to police. Surrendered, of course, he waved the little white bag.
Did someone say happy daddies? Well, there were a few in Washington in 1910 when Father's Day was celebrated for the first time. And in 1990, not on this day, Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "Who is your daddy and what does he do?" It's the last one. There are no rules.
That's right, Susie. In 2002, certified mad dog Steve Fossett took off from WA on his record-breaking around-the-world hot air balloon flight. And he treated himself to a traditional hot air balloon landing in the power lines next to a suburban park.
10 years ago today, Pixar's emotional roller coaster Inside Out hit screens. I'm not crying, you're crying. I am still upset about Bing Bong. Also, I lose my job next week, so which emotion do you think's behind the wheel now? It's hard to tell.
In 1978, everyone's favourite lasagna-loving pussycat, Garfield, starred in his first ever comic. A fat ranger who hates Mondays and loves carbs, obviously a big inspiration of mine.
Well, let's head back to 1846 when the first game of baseball, it took place in New York, in New Jersey rather. I'm now just not even saying things that are on the screen. Anyway, it was the New York Nines. They played the Knickerbockers, and I've just heard word that they've finally reached the 9th innings. That is a baseball joke. I get it. The score was 23-1, but for many of the players, it was the first time they reached second base.
In 1946, the first televised heavyweight boxing title fight between Joe Louis and Billy Conn was broadcast from Yankee Stadium. And 30 minutes before that, they played the first ever sports bet ad.
Please gamble responsibly. Today in 1967, the Beatles' Paul McCartney admitted on TV that he took LSD.
What?
Sorry, what? You're saying that the guy who wrote the lyrics, "I am the walrus, I am the Eggman, goo goo gachoo," took drugs? Baffling. And that for the last time is...
Hang on, have we been fired?
That was the last on this day we had.
We will take it with us.
I know.
We will take it with us.
I'm glad I saved my nervous breakdown for this one.
Now, our next guest is one of the greats, and he is doing his bit for the community.
And I think a lot of gay men do this, right? When we see a woman walking alone at night, we will do all we can within our power to let you know that we are a flaming homosexual, right? So if you're on that side of the street and I'm coming up behind you, that is your side of the street. I am crossing the street, but I am mincing across that street. I'm like bang, bang, bang across the street. I'll get on the other side of the street. I'll get Grinder out going goo-goo-dum, goo-goo-dum, goo-goo-dum. I'll hum Lady Gaga lyrics, you know, not shallow, obviously, because that implies I'm about to dig a grave.
Would you please welcome the gorgeous Joel Creasey?
I
I have to savour this moment. I've had so much fun at this desk.
Oh,
so.
Joel, don't make her cry again. Not yet.
Oh my
Not
gosh,
yet.
how many times have you cried today, Susie?
Oh my gosh, on air or off?
I don't need to hear about your personal issues.
Hey, Joel, just before we get into it, I was surprised there that maybe you could have preferred a Wicked song rather than a Gaga song to just be, you know, your true self.
I am the unofficial Wicked quality controller of the world. I have seen it 300 plus times on stage.
Wow.
I'm so proud of it. Yes. You go around and watch your favourite sports teams or whatever, you know, and do your favourite sports concerts, and I love Wicked. Wicked. Yeah, I know. I should have hummed Defying Gravity. It's just not quite in my range. Yeah.
With Wicked, though, you go 300 times. Is this like a cafe situation, like every 10th is free, or...?
At this point, honestly, like, it really should be. I love it. And I also I do this great thing where I let the cast know what I thought of the show afterwards. I provide feedback, which I think is important. I thought you could have opted up there, Elizabeth, but, you know, your gig, not mine.
Joel, you have sat at this desk many times. I have had the great pleasure of sitting at this desk with you, and I adore you. We do have some footage of a very early on appearance, maybe your first in 2014. Have a look.
Yes. I lie all the time to get out of dates. I once told a potential date that I couldn't come on the date because I was a pilot and I had a long-haul flight to do. And he was totally onto me as well, because he was like, OK, what sort of aircraft do you fly? And I said, the A380. And I was like, oh, God, is that a paper size? I'm not sure. Oh, my God, look at that little twink. And also, that was really when my hair was thinning. And before I got onto some amazing medication that makes it all come back. Although I went into my doctor the other day, the doctor that prescribed me this hair medication, he goes, are you on hair medication? I'm like, yeah, you prescribed it for me. And he goes, oh, well, it's not working. And he upped the dose.
Your hair looks incredible today. We don't have to talk about the early days before the treatments, but I call a little bit of BS on the plane joke, because you're a big plane nerd.
I'm an aerosexual. I love... It's a term for us, us in the aviation community that love planes.
I love a plane. I go with airtistic.
You both are very aviation.
We are. I go with Qantas, the spirit of Australia. My party trick is, it's so boring, but like if a plane's going over, I can probably tell you like what sort of aircraft it is, where it's going, what airline it is. I collect model aircraft.
Why?
You've got to have a hobby.
Are you actually one of the blokes that buys them on the plane, like in the Sky Mall magazine? Are you having a few white wines and going, yes, a 737 toy, please?
Absolutely, yeah. And then I'll waltz down the back and see what everyone's up to. I'll pop into the galley, see if they need any assistance, and throw out some peanuts, and I'm home.
Every time I've tried that, I just get arrested. Anyway.
Got to fly with me, Wally.
Yeah, it seems that way. We have very different airport experiences. Let's change the subject, shall we? You moved house recently. How'd that go?
I have moved house with my lovely fiancé, Jack, and the pandemic didn't break us. The casting of Ariana Grande in Wicked didn't break us. He was very pro. I was very anti. Saw the film. She was sensational. Furious she didn't get the Oscar. So we thought, what more could we do? We are moving into a place and living in it while we renovate. Yes, I'm fully channeling, this is a very niche reference, but Alyssa and Lysandra from The Block, 2-time winners, whatever. And I know it's a different network, but, doesn't... Who cares? Doesn't matter at this point. That's them. And then I also did a little edit and put Jack and my faces on.
Are you bringing their energy to the reno?
Yeah, big time. A lot of delegating, because they didn't have any, this is...
But there's only one other person in the house.
A dog.
Are you delegating? Oh, you've got the dog.
We've got Girlfriend, our dog as well.
Oh, great.
Our dog is called Girlfriend. I'm not having a midlife crisis. Don't get excited, Dad. What did you ask?
I said, if you're delegating, there's only one other person.
Yeah, I delegate to him, and then he delegates to someone else. We just look. At this point, I don't have a lot to say because we've just started. But if anybody wants to help out, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Well, you've got a lot going on. You're doing voice acting. You're a lime.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are.
I'm in Andy Lee's new series, I Do Not Watch This Show, and I play a very sassy lime, bitter and sweet, and this voice. So no one can ever take that role off me because only I have this.
Indeed, and sassy lime. It was what you were always destined to do, Joel. Joel has several shows appearing on very soon. Final time, though, on this one. Please thank Joel Creasey.